Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strike Zone with St. Paul Saints Manager George Tsamis. Strike Zone is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the St. Paul manager questions about the Saints, baseball or sports in general, or just seek George's wisdom about life events that are going on. In this week's program, George talks to us about the signing of Tony Thomas. He shares with us his feelings about Pete Rose Jr. taking over the Wichita Wingnuts job. And what would George do if he was on the Rob Gronkowski cruise? So let's get right to Strike Zone. Well, let us welcome back Manager George Tsamis. George, let's first of all begin with team updates from you.
Okay. Hi, how are you doing? And this week we have signed Tony Thomas. He's an experienced player. He's played at the AA, AAA level for the last 5-6 years, and he's going to be a valuable guy to have because he can play so many different positions. And in our league with a small 22, 23-man roster, it's so valuable to have guys that can play multiple positions, and like I said, he has the experience, and there's been a couple guys that we've had in the past that have played with him, and they've recommended him. Last year we had him signed last year like 3 times, and every time we had him signed, another major league club called and took him to AA. So it's not the first time we tried to get him, and again, we heard he's a great kid too, and that's obviously very important to have a good guy in the clubhouse. So we think it'll be really a positive addition for us.
Well, this looks like he's interested in playing with the Saints if he keeps coming back to the team. So that sounds like a good model for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, he's he knows all about the beautiful stadium, and and it's the Saints, and it's a great place to be, and he's been told that by plenty of people, so he's going to give it a shot, and we think he'll be a real good player for us.
Well, that sounds great. Before we get into fan questions this week, we want to talk a little bit about Pete Rose Jr. signed as the Wichita Wingnuts manager to replace Kevin Hooper. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I've never met him. I think it's a great choice, though, from what I've heard. I know some people that know him and said he's a real good guy, a real intense guy. He has managed before, in the White Sox, in A-ball with the White Sox, and I think it's a real good choice for them, and experienced guy, and I think it's good for the league too to have him in Wichita.
Absolutely. Well, let us head to our fan questions this week. We'll first of all begin from Tom from Eden Prairie, who asked, Skipper, can you explain to me why pitchers don't hit better? I just remember in high school that the pitchers were the best all-around athletes on the team. What happens to them?
You know what? That's a good question. Well, they think they can still hit. I know that because every pitcher you have thinks, I'm a great hitter. I can do this. I can do that. Like Robert Cole, for example. He wants to do both, and he showed last year he can hit a little bit, but there aren't too many guys like him that they can swing it. But I guess you can say it the other way around too. The position players think they can pitch, and they can't do that either. So it's just something that pitchers turned out to be better pitchers, and the position players are better hitters, and they stick to that.
Is there a point in the minors or college or something where they start to say, okay, you're going to be a big-time pitcher here, so we don't want you standing, wasting your talent at the plate kind of thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat that?
Is there a point where, along in minor league baseball or in college, where a team will say, this guy's going to be a big-time star pitcher for us, so we don't want him kind of risking his talent at the plate too often here, so, get your swings in, but you're not standing out here taking batting practice every day?
Yeah, I guess it depends how good he is coming out of high school, and you know what? By the time you get into college, you pretty much know what you're better at, and if you're a better pitcher, you should stick to that. And cause I do agree. For example, in the National League, when pitchers hit, I think that's so silly having the pitchers hit, and especially with all the money they're paying them these days. And it's like, you don't want pitchers getting hurt on the bases or swinging, and it's just, I don't know. I just think it's a pitcher shouldn't be hitting, because again, you do want to avoid injury and more chances of getting hurt when you're up there swinging, and you can get hit by a pitch, and break your hand. It's just, to me, it's just not worth it.
I agree with you there. Oliver from Fargo would like to know, when you go out to talk to a pitcher, why does it always seem that the umpire has to break up the manager's conversation with the pitcher? Is there really that much strategy being discussed?
At times there is, but at times there's not. A lot of it is just you're going out there just trying to settle a guy down, or you're just trying to give the relievers in the bullpen a chance to get ready, and just trying to kill a little time. And there's times you're out there joking around with them to kill some time. So it's not what it always seems when you see the manager or pitching coach out there just stalling at times, I guess you can say.
Samuel from St. Paul asks of you, George, he says he heard that you pitch batting practice for Bill Murray. Do you give him the good stuff, or do you have to take it easy on the owner?
Well, if you're smart, you just lay it right in there for him, and you know what? And he swings okay too, and you start off nice and easy, and if he's ripping them and if he's hitting them good, then maybe you speed it up a little bit, and you just adjust your speed on how good the hitter is. But he's okay, and played catch with him too. And there was a time a few years ago that he came in and he threw a bullpen too, and so we got to see him pitch and I got to catch him, and it's real nice. It's not something you can say that you get to do every day, and just the way you see him in the movies, that's the way he is. He's a Superman, and he's a great guy, funny guy, and again, he's not a bad hitter.
He seems like a pretty good athlete because he plays golf and some other things too, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, we see him all the time on his little golf tournaments, and but he's like I said, he can still swing it okay.
Good for him. Alan in Minneapolis would like to know from you, the year you pitched for the Twins, were you aware when you came to spring training that you were going to be on the Major League team?
No, you have to go down there. You're a younger guy, and I had a couple of decent years in AAA, but you got to come down there and make a team. And the 2 years that I was in big league camp, I did not make a team out of spring training, so I went to AAA, and that's spring training is a tough time when you're trying to make a team, and you can't make many mistakes. And but again, both years, when you're in spring training, a lot of guys are there just to get their work in. They're the veteran guys, but when you're a young guy, AAA player trying to make a team, you got to go out there and do your best, and and you got to cut down the mistakes. But again, I never broke camp with a team. I went to AAA on both years, and but it's a lot tougher than people think.
When you came to spring training for yourself, then what's the mentality like for you when you're really trying to make the club at that point?
You're going there trying to make the team, trying to impress some guys. And here's the thing: when I pitched, it's not like I ever threw 90 miles per hour. So I was a mid-80s guy. So it's not like I, impressed them with the radar gun. It's just a matter you just have to go there and get outs. And throughout the minors, I had a decent career in the minors, and then I did get my one chance in the big leagues, and it was a struggle. It was tough, and like I've told you before, the big league hitters, they're pretty good, and they certainly lay off those pitches that maybe those AA or AAA hitters chase.
Do they give you some kind of indication, like, George, we're sending you down, but the first time we're going to need a guy here, you're going to be our guy, or they just sent you down and then you're just kind of hoping your name gets called at some point?
No, you just throughout spring training, there's just times when towards the end of spring training they just call guys in the office, and when they send somebody out to bring you in, or they call your name to come in, you know what it's about, and those aren't the best days when they when they tell you didn't make a team and you're going down the AAA.
Mel from St. Paul would like to know from you. He says Joe Madden said that he thought his team was overdoing it because they came in early to spring training. Is he right, or is this just guys who want to win a ring?
I think it's good that guys get down there early, and especially when you're sitting around for 5 months, and it's just you just can't wait to get down there. And coming in early spring training, to me, I think that's great. But I don't think you need to be out on the field 6 hours a day either. I think you go in and get your work in, and maybe in the middle of spring training, maybe it's good to have a couple of days off. For me, come in early, and then in the middle of spring training, maybe have a day off. once every 10 days just to give a guy a break.
Do they have off days from games during spring training, or pretty much every day the teams?
I believe so. I believe, from what I remember, each team had one day off. But it just spring training is an exciting time. But then when you're down there 20 days in a row and 30 days in a row, it gets kind of old, and you can't wait to get out of there. So that's why I think it's good just to give a guy a day or two off.
Plus long bus rides to Fort Myers or wherever else you got to go to.
Yeah, especially in Florida. Yeah, it's some of those are over 3 hours, and then with the traffic, it's not fun.
Our next question comes from a person identifying himself as Nats fan. He says Jonathan Papelbon is back with the Nationals and says everything is good between him and Bryce Harper. Do players really let go of stuff like that after what Papelbon did? And doesn't that seem like it would be a major distraction to the team?
Yeah, that whole situation, I think that was a distraction when they got him in, when they brought him in, and you know what? I mean, only they know how they feel about each other. But I'll say this: on every team you're on, there's always somebody that this guy doesn't like that guy, and it's just the way it is, and you're not going to get along with everybody. And I'm sure out there where everybody's out there working in the office or wherever they're working, there's probably somebody there that they don't get along with, and just the way it is. And but you have to go out there and do your job, and you don't want it to be a distraction.
Next comes Kim from Egan, who says, with Ardalis Chapman and Jose Reyes issue with domestic abuse, do you think your job is harder as the guy having to recruit players because the slightest error by a player and everyone is on your back for why you bring in a guy like that?
Yeah, that's the thing, especially with getting the players in our league. Most of the players you get, you don't even see, and you try to be careful on who you bring in, but you try to get reports on players, and sometimes you get accurate reports, and sometimes you don't, and it truly is. You just got to hope you get the right guy, and especially during the season too. During the season when guys go down or a guy gets signed or a guy got hurt, and you need to bring a guy in, and there's not that much out there, especially the AA, AAA players, and you hope the guy you bring in is a good guy, because it's really dry during the summer, and it's tough to find the quality players during the summer. So, but you don't want the distraction. So if a guy's a bad guy, and try to talk to him about it, try to be on the same page with him. And if it doesn't work, then you got to get rid of him, and you get rid of him, and that's something that's happened everywhere.
Ben from Stillwater asks of you, do you find it troubling that the all-time hits leader and the all-time home run leader may never get into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's troubling, and probably not troubling. It's not the right word, and to me, because again, that's something that's not really that important to me. But it's weird, though. It's weird that those two guys aren't in, and they were the best at what they did, and I guess it's just a weird, different situation.
Yes, it is. Trent from Minnetonka, turning to a little football question for you, says, George, I heard you talk about Antonio Brown, how he should be the MVP of the NFL. The more I thought about it, the more I don't get how a running back can be an MVP, but not a guy like that who changes defensive schemes. Why isn't he considered for the MVP, do you think?
Yeah, well, honestly, I did say that Cam Newton should have been the MVP, but after Cam Newton, I thought Antonio Brown should have been right there, right behind him. And, if he's a wide receiver, it's not I guess the quarterback is the big position and the running back, but he just changes so many things, and he makes so many things happen, and I guess that's just the way it works, that the receivers really aren't up there in the MVP race, but valuable. He's as valuable as any player in that league. He is something else.
He sure is. It's amazing how the guy seems triple covered, 2 inches from the sideline, whatever it is, always making catches.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's every week, and he's a little guy, but he is so quick, so fast, and he's a guy that you just love to watch play.
Absolutely. Hopefully no lingering effects from that concussion there in the playoffs. Leon from Buffalo would like to know, are you one of those guys who is crazy into the NFL draft, the NFL combine, and all the mock drafts?
No, not really. I mean, I used to watch the draft a bunch over the years, but now it's to the point where I don't know. I'm just not as interested as much as I used to be, and again, like I've told you before, all I really care about is the Saints and how we do.
Next comes from Mike from Bloomington, who says, I saw the New Orleans Saints are looking to sign Drew Brees to a new 2-year contract at 37 years old. Do you think he has 2 good years left in him?
He's still a good quarterback, and as we've seen here the last couple of years, it's tough to find good quarterbacks, so they should probably find a way to keep him, and he's still one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, and he's a guy that a lot of teams would take.
Next is Kyle from Farmington, knowing George is a fellow Bay Area person. He says, George, can you really imagine the Raiders in Las Vegas, San Antonio, or even worse, San Diego?
Hopefully not. You know what? They belong in Oakland. That's where they should be. The Chargers belong in San Diego, too. That should be the same thing. Both those teams need to stay there, and you hope it works out that way. You just don't know. But Raiders belong in Oakland, and again, the Chargers belong in San Diego, and it's weird how they can't figure it out down there either, because from everything I've told is how beautiful it is down there in San Diego to live, and they need to keep that team there.
Yeah, it's always up there as like one of the best cities in America to live in. I don't understand why a team isn't thriving there.
I don't either.
Weird. Our last question comes from Dan from St. Paul, who says, George, it looked like Rob Gronkowski was living it up on that cruise ship. Why weren't you partying with the Gronk?
I'll tell you what, he was having some fun, and I guess that's what he does in the off season. He enjoys his life, I guess, and but he is one great player, the best at his position, and but he works so hard too. You can just see him. He's ready to play, and again, he just had some bad luck with the injuries. He's something else, but yeah, it probably would have been nice. It would have been a fun thing to be on that ship.
Do you got some moves like the Gronk, Scott?
Absolutely not. You'll never ever catch me doing that, and nobody never needs to ask me about that either.
All right, well, thanks for joining us this week, George. We want to thank Manager George Tsamis for joining us on Strike Zone this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the St. Paul Saints manager, please send them to us at AskGeorge@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. That's AskGeorge@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little time to review them before we record the show on Monday. I want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll look for you next week on Strike Zone.